I said I would start from where I left off, and um, I left off talking about how I finished arguing with my husband after I got a call back from um, a company that I had interviewed with earlier that day, who asked me to come into the office the next day at 8:30. Thankfully, because of that phone call, I was able to literally leave the situation, change my mindset, and go into another conversation that brought great news to me, because they wanted me to begin work, and that was good. I ended up hanging up the call, sat in the floor of my closet, and my daughter sat in my lap as she looked at her tablet, or someone's tablet. I don't think it was hers. And just that comfort to provide her, I couldn't do it. And so I needed to do something else at that moment, because of what I had experienced in the argument, and all that I had been trying to explain to him, and all that he was yelling back at me, and just, we were yelling. It was just so much, and I've already had so much yelling. Oh God, I ended up just getting out of the house, and my husband opening up the door and yelling after me, like, "Oh," I said, "I'm sorry, I thought we ended it." And no, just because we walked away doesn't mean, and he's okay with that. Like, he doesn't need closure, I guess. He doesn't need for us to come to a conclusion. He doesn't need us to have arrived to a new established understanding on how we operate together, cooperate together, moving forward. And so he was just like, "I thought it was over." And by me leaving, he that was communicating something else to him. But I just left, and I didn't verbalize anything except, I just need to go, or something like that. And so yes, the thoughts of me trying to end my life ended up in my mind, and I just thought about that, and I went back and forth between me going to community group, and then settled I'm going to go to community group. But the thought of how to end my life, what didn't leave, it was also there as well. And so I did go get me something to drink and some M&Ms, and just like, I'll just snack on this, because the 2 hours I spent arguing, I could have gotten something to eat, but I was involved in something else. So I ended up driving to community group and sat in my truck, and I was wondering, should I go in there? I know good and well I'm not going to be able to contribute anything or receive anything well, but I said, I do know that I do enjoy going to this group. I like being able to be a part of this group, and they pull out of me things that I express, and they pull out of me how I should not have perceived it that way, how they support how I perceived this, how they and that's what each member does in this group. And we discuss the things that have gone on through this week, good things and bad things. We discuss goals and achievements. We discuss failures, and every woman having discernment and spending their time in the word are able to be vessels, to be used by God, to be able to speak words of encouragement, words of support, and discernment, that in love are able to communicate to everyone, and so that so what is said could also be received in love. It's a great environment to be in. It's a great environment to be in, because everything that is done there is verbalized, and expressed also through hugs and holding on of hands and spending time to pray. At that moment, something is expressed, and ask God, deal with it, involve yourself in it, intervene. And I like that moment. And so, but I'm dealing with trying to kill myself and then trying to go into that moment. And I wasn't trying to kill, I was just thinking about it and how to do it. And so ended up, just since I was there, I just went in there. When I went in there, our community group is made up of, so far, 5 members, and they're including myself. But recently we have gone a launcher, aka community shepherd, who is sent by the church, that has already gone through a rigorous process to of where they are in connection to the church's belief, as long as it's that is strictly biblical, and what that has to do in concerns for how to spearhead this community group. So this community group has been meeting, but recently we have had a launcher attach on and commit to walking with us for 8 weeks, to really emphasize how community should be used as branches of the church built up by members that desire to honor God. So not all of a sudden we don't just meet up and share, we meet up and have a curriculum that really pours out scripture. And so I didn't want to do all that. I didn't want to add a book and lessons throughout the week. I didn't want to do all that. But the benefit of doing all that, it forces you to read scripture that you might not have already spent time on, dwelled on, tried to memorize, tried to apply to your life, your thoughts, your emotions. And so and God works in that way. And so to resist doing that, you resist another way that God could work in your life. So when I went in there, we were, I think, on week 1 or week 2, and doesn't matter, but they wanted to take that time for me to share with them all that I have been experiencing in my marriage concerning my husband. And they wanted me to just share some key points that help them to understand why I'm even thinking of annulment. Why am I even thinking of separation? And so to talk about those points that I have not been able to talk about, to where someone has encouraged or validated that, yes, that is wrong, because I've talked with him and he'll be like, I don't want to talk about it right now. I've talked about it with my parents and they'll be like, okay, well, what are you doing to contribute to these meetings? And what are you doing to contribute to these things that you're bringing to the table, these events that you're discussing? And so now my community group that I've just been a part of since, I think, September, the last week of September, has been in my life when I've experienced an actual altercation, and they wanted to know backstory, understandably, so that they can fully support, but also be coming from where God would, how God would lead them in being an arm or a shoulder at this time. So I didn't even get to any of the physicality or violence that has happened in the marriage. I remember him pulling my shirt down and my blouse down while we were in the church when he wanted me to talk, and I was just like, I'm not really ready to talk right now. Matter of fact, I don't want to talk at all right now. And so I tried to leave, and he held my hand, and then we started wrestling, and he pulled down my blouse, and I was wondering why would you do that? Like, that's just too much. And I just feel like the parameters in which he operates are way too wide. And I'll share this to someone, I'll be yelling, I'll be screaming, and I'm yelling to people that always feel that I should do something better. And I'm just like, you know what, they're right to an extent, but my community group responds completely different. Another event I shared with them, and that was, we weren't even married or engaged at that time. We had broken up from dating at that time. Another incident before we even got married was when we were engaged, and we were reading the Bible, and I said to my then boyfriend, let's read Psalm 90. We started reading, but then I stopped and I said, oh, it says that be slow to anger and be quick to listen, be slow to anger. And then for whatever reason, we went back and forth verbally and got into an altercation. And then I was just like, I just want to go. And then it's always like, no. It is constantly always no. And putting his hands on me
just as far as like just holding me back to where I can't go. And I'm like, no, I really want to go, and I really don't have that opportunity, only because we're not of equal strength. And so and there's no regard for, she said she want to go, I do not have control over her. Let me respect the fact that she said go, and I'm not respecting the fact that he's just like, no, we need to talk about it right now. I'm not respecting that. I'm not respecting the fact that he's just like, we had an issue. I want us to get to the bottom of it right now. And I'm just like, no, it's too heated, and we're not, the style that we're arguing, what we're using is to stay in the argument. None of us really know how to use solution focused words. None of us know how to use solution focused body movement. If we could just take off touching, take it off the table altogether, that would be step one. Hearing the other person and respecting what the words that are coming out of their mouth. That, like, there are people that don't know how to do that. I'm saying no, and then you're just completely dismissing it because you feel what you have in mind or what you have in heart is superior to what I'm saying. And that's my problem. And you don't see it. You don't see my problems as just as equivalent, as just as heavy as yours, the things that you have in your heart and your mind. And so that's what we were constantly experiencing and still are. Later on that particular day, he told my parents that I punched him in the nose, and I was just like, I don't remember touching you. But he said that the police were called. He told my parents that the police were called and that he doesn't want the engagement. I was just like, he told y'all all that? I didn't even know. And so that was like 2010, because he had proposed August 29, 2010, and so that engagement was over. And so we ended up getting engaged again June 2012. And I remember a physicality when I went, after he proposed that day, about 4 hours later, like immediately after he proposed, that Saturday, I think it was a Saturday in June, that he proposed. We went out to eat, and I shared with him some books that I was working, a book that I was working on, and I just shared with him how I'm just struggling with my thoughts and things like that, and then just something came to thought, and I used it as my forward. He was like, oh, so interesting. And then we began to, I began to talk, and I just didn't like how the conversation was going. I didn't like how it was being perceived, because I was sharing my deep, dark heart and my thoughts, and with someone that I was just proposed to me, and I accepted, and he was just like, interesting. And so I just, I didn't like that, and I didn't feel like going forward. So 3 hours later, we had already left each other, whatever, but I went back to where he stayed, and I was just like, knock on the door, here you go, I don't want this ring, I'm so sorry. And I tried to have a conversation about it. In my mind, that's my problem. I feel like we can converse about something and get to the solution of it, but he is ready to argue you until you die. And me not understanding that you're arguing with someone that is ready to argue with you, you're arguing with someone that is ready to argue with you, not ready to solve it with you, not ready to, you know what, I hear what you're saying, and okay, I'm okay with what you're saying. I would like for both of us to be cooperating. I would like for both of us to arrive to where we are both wanting the same goal, the same thing. That was not in the equation. And I didn't have enough wisdom to decipher that. I really kept going with it. I was just like, here, I don't want it. And then we started arguing, and I was just like, no, I really don't want to. No, I really don't want to. And instead of being silent, or not even giving it's not upward for discussion, I'm not ready to spend my life with you. And he was just like, well, I'm not gonna let you leave. And so I was just like, what? You can't do that. I just so young, so whatever the opposite of wise is, which is ignorant, so ignorant in where he was and how much of me he felt like he could dismiss, how much of me that I'm presenting that he's just like, well, that doesn't fit with what I'm wanting. That was so, and yet here we are married. And of course we're having the same problem, because I'm saying what I want and I'm saying what I don't want. And you're like, no. Of course that's why we're having problems. And so I remember throwing my ring in the Zales box in the back of his balcony when we physically fought to get out of the house. Because he took my phone. I was like, I'm just gonna call the police or whatever. Like, I'm calling the police. I need to get out of here. Because I was locked in, and like 2 hours was going by. and it had come to like nighttime. Now he proposed in the morning. It had to be around 9. It had to be, because I'd actually just gotten up, and I think I jogged and then showered, and then and I was fully dressed by the time he texted me to come outside of my parents' house, and he proposed in our front lawn. And so I remember the same night he proposed, we were wrestling, and I was like, I don't want this, leave me alone. And of course somebody was there or whatever, just to intervene. This is what I'm saying, and I want you to know that you're not hearing me. And I remember him throwing it in the back seat lowered window of the Camry that I was driving at the time. And I was just like, this is too much. I'm tired physically. And for me to continue to try it's not that it's ignorant. I remember going to my mom and dad. I remember going to my dad, and my dad telling me the statistics all over the world, how many women are to men. And for somebody to just ask me to get married is a really big thing. So I should understand that, for one, no matter where I move to. And I remember he said that in front of my mom and my dad. And my dad, my mom doesn't say anything while my dad's talking. She'll sit there and she'll be silent, and that was then. And so I remember telling my mom, maybe like 1 or 2 days later, I really don't want to marry them. Not that I don't want to marry them. I told her I don't even like this guy, and I don't know anything about him, and I'm not interested in him. And I told him that I was talking to somebody. I told her that. Oh, I wanted to tell her that I was talking to somebody else. But no. So what I did tell her was that I don't like him. I don't like my now husband. And she was just like, do you even want to get married? She asked me, do I even understand what... She asked me, she was just more like, she was like, I don't think that you want a good future. I don't think that you even know what a good man is. And that's so good for me to reflect on right now. Not just to harbor animosity or to go back in the past, but I have a daughter right now. I have a son. I have children. I'm a mother. It is imperative that the conversations that I expressed my being, my heart desires to anyone, in those same instances that someone responded back to me, irrespective of what I said, but just took the subject matter and gave me their opinion, gave me what they thought was wisdom, and gave me their values. I need not to do that. And I want to make sure that I understand what that looks like on the giver's end. I don't want to easily be that, because I could easily be that same person and pass down from generation, just ignoring when my children come to me, and then just tell them, well, in life you really need to do this, you really need to do that. Yes, it is true that as mothers and fathers that we should share to our sons and daughters, it is good when a man finds a wife, it is good to do this, and just to give them wisdom, but make sure the wisdom is founded in truth. But that's secondary. What is primary to that is hear what the person is actually saying. Hear what your child is actually saying. Why would you want to contribute to them being a part of something they don't even have their full mind, their full heart to even be a part of? To me, it doesn't make any sense, and there's no biblical foundation in that. Where does in the Bible say, like, you continue doing something that your whole heart and your whole mind isn't fully there? So on my end, though, I was very people pleasing. On my end, I went to her trying to see if I could maybe share the ball. The ball was in my court. If I could share it, Mom, this is how I feel, and he does not care how I feel. He does not. I am saying no. When he put the ring on my finger, I said, but I don't love you, and I wasn't thinking about you last month. I didn't think about you once last month. I'm in a relationship now. When he put a ring on my finger, he knelt down and said, will you marry me? And I said, I don't love you, and I wouldn't even think about you. And he was just like, And then he was just like, okay. And what he did was to actually put the ring on my finger at that time. It was just at the tip of my finger. Now he put it on my finger. And then it got when I said, what about all the fights and the arguments that we've been having? I wasn't done, and I wasn't forgetful. He said, oh, we will work on it. He said, we will work on it. And I said, oh, I don't love you. And then he said, oh, the love will grow. And then I was just like, okay. And that's on me, taking people's word. Like, what? Why would you take, it's not wrong to take people's word, but I have had such a long history with him. We dated for 4 years straight, and then on and off that year that we had from 2010, and then yeah, on and off until the next engagement. And no, not until the next engagement. On and off for 4 years straight, and then just 4 years on and off after that, up until 2012. So 8 years I'd known this, not just known him, dated him. So we were in a relationship, and I hadn't loved you at that time that you proposed. So in my mind at that time, I posed these questions, which should have made it to where, no, just, I mean, yes, even if I did force the ring to not be on my finger, or just kept my hands in my pocket, or put my hands on my head or behind my back, it would have been a physical altercation. He does not care. And that's on him. But on me, I just should have taken more. I just wish I had more awareness. What do you do when the person you're working with doesn't care? Why are you trying to work with them anyway? The Bible says working with an angry person is foolish, you know. And so I mean, he wasn't displaying anger, but he definitely was displaying a disregard for my heart content, a disregard for me. The expression of me, he was disregarding. I would say with my mouth yes and no. I would physically fight you, which means that I am not in accordance with you. I'm not in congruence with you. I'm not working with you. And it would be to where I'm stronger than you. And then now, because I'm tired, I'm now having to work in compliance. But even in that compliance, when I received the ring, I remember keeping it in my purse for over a few days, because he would just show up at my house, and he would just be at my house, and my parents were talking to him because he had proposed 2 years before. So they were like, oh my God, you work things out. When I tell you, they were disregarding what I had to say. I don't even love this guy. They were just like, where's my head at? They had a goal for me, and they had interests. And they did tell me, because when they came over here to America, that because my sister married a Nigerian here, that is a reflection of them passing traditions and cultures on. So it's such a accolade to them when their American-born child marries someone of the same culture. It's just a prestige to them in the community here. So I didn't have enough wisdom to hear something like that and be on guard for me not trying to use my life or my marriage or a future marriage as a way to bring them prestige, so that I could demonstrate how I honor them or respect them. That is so here's the thing. So it's not bad to get married. It's not bad to honor your thy mother and thy father. However, they were not in accordance with what God desires. You understand? Because when you get married, it's a 3-strand cord. When you get married, you involve God in it. When you get married, you have to submit to your husband. But if he is not submitting unto God, then that's on you. Didn't value that in the beginning, if you had any control over your marriage. So what I could have done at that time, I don't know. I really don't. Because I mean, I guess started fighting or whatever. I really did look up to see who I knew that was out of the state, so I could just be amongst them, because he was involving himself to an extent that I wasn't prepared to always be on physical, and even though he wasn't physical while he was visiting my parents, and I just come home from being on a date with my boyfriend, what I could have done is still unbeknownst to me. Like, what I could have done, hey, I don't want to marry this guy. Hey. They would have been like, well, what? Do you even have goals? So I was thinking about trying to involve my boyfriend and be like, dude, this guy is on a whole nother level that I'm not prepared to partake in. And so me giving up allowed events to just unravel. And that's what's happening now. Oh, Jesus, Lord. I remember sharing that to my community group, and then it just made me just start trying to tear up, and they were like, okay, well, that's enough. Thank you. And so it took a while for me to explain all that to my community group. And so we went past our time, and I usually go to Regeneration after that. I just got in my car, and I just continued to think about how to end my life. And then one of my community group members sat in the car, came in with, and just sat here, and she was just like, oh, the Bible tells us how the enemy wants to destroy. So I know the contribution you've made to other community group members and this community group. So please don't be listening to the enemy who can enter into the thoughts. And so she sat with me almost an hour, I think, or more than that. And so, and she was like, think about your children, think about your this and whatever. I was just like, they are better off by me not being here, always being sad in my house, just feeling helpless, like I can't do anything. I keep going, why do I keep going to my parents for help and safety? And I just don't know enough, I feel. And I know stuff in this area, but then nothing in this area. And I just feel like I keep picking up the knife and stabbing my own eyes by the things that I'm doing to help my situation. And so after she and I parted, we hugged, and then I drove to my house, and I just kind of sat in my car, and I started to hear the cars go by, and I wondered, that would be easier. I was looking for a way to end my life without putting a lot of work into it. I was looking for a way to end my life without going through a lot of effort or whatever. So I felt like if I drive up on the highway and get in front of cars, but I felt cars would make me brake, and I didn't want to hurt myself. I wanted to end my life, so I needed to figure out a way. So I thought about these motorcycles that were making the most noise as I was sitting there parked. And I wondered, if I get on the side of the highway and then get out of my car and get on the side, I felt like I've heard a lot of people can lose their life by just changing their tires. So I thought about either running in front of a motorcycle, because it just seemed like they were just zooming. Just the noise I was hearing, the motorcycles make more noise as they cut through air, zooming on the highway at night. And so I just wondered if that was how that would work. So I wasn't just thinking about it. Now I had progressed to how I was going to do it, and I thought that would be great. But I felt like there was another element, because I felt like if the motorcycles were going so fast, and there isn't a lot of traffic, but I was like, maybe there is, because they get to cut through car in and out of cars, out of lanes so quickly. But I just sat with that for over an hour, and then all of a sudden I started thinking about how my father made me feel after I finished talking to him, and I just felt like, you know what, maybe I do that. I literally switched in my thoughts to maybe I am the one that is the arguing person. And I was just like, maybe I'm the one that causes, maybe I contribute more to the arguments that we have than I even realize. And I stopped thinking about how to end my life, and I just said, woo! And I just felt released, and not relieved, but I felt released. I felt like maybe there was maybe something looming over me, and then it just wasn't anymore. That was interesting. So my husband had called, and I just let the call go, and I texted him. I was just like, if there's anything you need, just text me or whatever. What is it? And no response. My brother had texted me, and I was just like, I'm just not right here. I'm really trying to figure out how to live in my life. So I entertained that thought again. Maybe I'm the arguer. And I was like, I need to apologize. Maybe I'm the arguer. My dad argues with people on end, so maybe I'm the one. And so I got out of the car, and it's probably like 2 hours later. So it's like maybe 10 or 11 o'clock now. Whew. And I went back into my house. Everyone was asleep, and my husband had decided to sleep on one of the kids' beds. And I was like, And I went and laid down, and I felt like I should maybe listen to some gospel or something on my phone. And I laid in my closet, and that really hurt my back. But I went to the room because I could hear either my kids were talking in their sleep, or they were telling him, get off of my bed. You and I cannot sleep on this full mattress. Get off. And I wasn't sure of what I was hearing, but I went to him and I said, whenever you're able, please come back and to the bed, if you can. And so and I was polite. I just felt like I was the problem. I was polite. I was like, you know what? I do this. I'm arguing more than I need to. I'm the arguer. So when he did come back to the bed, maybe about 10 minutes later, I was just like, no, it was in the morning, because I went to sleep, and in the morning, I just felt relieved. So it took a time for that, but I felt relieved. And I said, good morning. And I said, I'm sorry for arguing with you, and I apologize for that. And I just left or whatever, because I wasn't really trying to have a conversation or whatever, because I just don't feel like I just need to leave. I don't need to. If there's something I need to say, just say it and then just go. Don't be there. It's go pop off. It's gonna start arguing. It's gonna be like, well, you did. And I did say something that night when he did come back to the bed. I was just like, I'm sorry for arguing. He was just like, well, I just don't really know what to do with you, because every time I say something to you, you always feel like you and I have animosity. You and I have war. And when he went and I'm just laying there in the dark, and I'm just like, I should have just shared with him that I was really outside thinking the worst thing. But I didn't think that it would be something that, why would you think that anybody would care anyway? So after that, he stopped, because he's now just talking to himself, because I didn't say anything. And then the morning is when I said I apologize. And then later on that afternoon, I had texted him while I was at work, and I said, I need to talk to you. So when I got back to the house, I asked him, who do you like talking to in my family? And he said, he named all these people. I was like, who do you talk to that causes you irritation? And he was just like, oh, not irritation, but sometimes I feel like your dad will say something, and he'll just leave pertinent pieces of information out, because that could have really made the other person look good, and he won't share that. And I really don't like that. It comes off really deceitful. And he was just like, well, whenever I talk to your brother, I feel like he really gets me. When I talk to your other brother, I just feel like I shouldn't even share anything. Matter of fact, we don't even share anything that's really, really deep. It's really just about football, and we'll be finna order to eat, and that's it. And I'm just like, well, what are you talking about? What do you feel like when you talk about? What do you feel like when you and I talk? And he was just like, I feel like we're at war. I feel like you're challenging me. I feel like it's just like we're always at odds. And I'm just like, okay. And I just wrote it down, and I just wanted to emulate the people and those characteristics that he named with concerning the people that he did like talking to, that he did feel like he would able to say something and then be able to get to a finished conversation, like, oh, he was heard, he was listened to, he was supported or encouraged or whichever. I just wanted to implement some of those things. And then I shared with him that I sat in the car last night, and I wanted to end my life, and this is what I thought about, and this is what I thought could really get that. And he was just like, interesting. And so I wondered if that was even a good move to share with someone, share something like that with him. And I shared with him, I've had one attack